In today's video, we'll be taking a look at some of the biggest blunders and miscalculations that countries have made throughout history. While every nation has its errors, these 10 stand out as particularly shocking, expensive mistakes that nations came to deeply regret. Let's get started with number 10 on our list. Number 10. Japan underestimating the US in WWII. The Japanese military leadership made a grave error in judgment when they launched a surprise attack on the U.S. naval base at Pearl Harbor in 1941. They hoped to cripple America's Pacific Fleet and buy Japan time to expand its empire. However, they severely underestimated the industrial might and resilience of the United States. By attacking America, Japan awakened a sleeping giant and brought the full force of the U.S. economy and military against them. Within just a few years, Japan had been defeated and occupied by Allied forces at an enormous cost in lives and resources. Had they left the U.S. out of the war in the Pacific, things may have turned out very differently for Japan in the long run. Number 9. France falls for Germany's false peace offer in 1940. When Germany invaded France in 1940, the French leadership was shocked by how rapidly the German blitzkrieg tactics overran their defenses. Faced with encirclement and collapse, French Prime Minister Paul Reynaud pushed for France to continue fighting from North Africa. However, newly appointed Prime Minister Philippe Pétain accepted an armistice offered by Germany. He believed Hitler when he promised not to occupy all of France, and that this was the best path to peace. Of course, Germany took this opportunity to occupy the entire country and use Vichy France as a puppet state. This costly mistake handed Hitler a major victory and altered the course of World War II. Number 8. Russia invades Afghanistan in 1979. In a tragic error, the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan in 1979 to prop up a communist puppet government facing rebellion. They hoped to swiftly defeat the Mujahideen resistance and extend their sphere of influence. However, they severely underestimated the fighting spirit and guerrilla tactics of the Afghan Mujahideen, who were battle-hardened from years of war. Fierce resistance tied down the Soviet military for nearly a decade in a bloody quagmire. Over 15,000 Soviet soldiers lost their lives and billions were spent with no victory. The debacle seriously damaged Russia's international reputation and global standing. It also empowered and emboldened Al-Qaeda and the Taliban, who emerged from the Mujahideen. The after-effects are still felt to this day. Number 7. Britain's invasion of Egypt during the Suez Crisis of 1956. Thinking it could reinstate its dominance, the United Kingdom joined with France and Israel to invade Egypt after President Nasser nationalized the vital Suez Canal. However, they failed to anticipate the intense international political backlash to their military action, especially from allies the United States and the United Nations. Under economic and diplomatic pressure, Britain and France were forced to withdraw in humiliation, while Nasser emerged stronger. The Suez Crisis marked the end of Britain as a global superpower and seriously damaged its prestige at the height of the Cold War. It was a strategic blunder that highlighted the limits of Britain's post-war power. Number 6. Germany invades Russia without proper winter gear in 1941. When Germany launched Operation Barbarossa and invaded the Soviet Union in 1941, they achieved early stunning victories, capturing millions of Red Army soldiers. However, Hitler and his generals severely underestimated the vastness of Russia and the ability of the Soviets to move their industries east of the Urals. As the campaign dragged into the brutal Russian winter without proper winter clothing or equipment, German forces found themselves exposed to the freezing temperatures. Hitler's decision to start the invasion months late in June 1941 meant the German 6th Army was snowed in and surrounded at Stalingrad by November 1942. Over 500,000 German troops either froze or starved to death. This catastrophic failure halted their momentum towards Moscow. It was a major strategic mistake that contributed to Germany's eventual defeat. Number 5. Spain financed Columbus' voyage, seeking a westward route to Asia in 1492. When Christopher Columbus sailed west from Spain in 1492, the Spanish crown hoped he might find a new western trade route to Asia. They believed the estimates of distance were accurate and didn't factor in the possibility of a whole American continent lying in between. While Spain gained new colonial territories with Columbus' voyage, it took decades to realize this was in fact a new world and not Asia. Huge investments were wasted as Spain pursued Asian riches that weren't there. The new colonial acquisitions also brought unforeseen challenges for Spain, like disease epidemics that devastated native populations. All in all, backing Columbus' voyage seeking Asia was a major strategic blunder for Spain that did not yield the expected economic benefits, as Asia lay thousands of miles farther than anticipated. Number 4. The U.S. Bay of Pigs invasion of Cuba in 1961. In one of the biggest failures of covert U.S. foreign policy, the administration of President John F. Kennedy approved a CIA-planned invasion of Cuba at the Bay of Pigs in 1961. They hoped exiled Cuban groups could rally the local population and overthrow Fidel Castro. However, the invasion force of only 1,400 men was no match for Castro's military. Lack of proper U.S. air and naval support doomed the mission to failure within 3 days. Beyond the tactical disaster, it strengthened Castro's regime and gave the Soviets a propaganda victory in Latin America. The fallout hurt U.S. credibility during the Cold War for years. It showed Kennedy to be inexperienced and revealed flaws in U.S. intelligence gathering abilities. This blunder handed Castro and communism a major boost. Number 3. Germany invades Russia on the Eastern Front in World War II without sufficient resources. Nazi Germany's invasion of the Soviet Union in June 1941 was one of the largest military operations in world history. Initially, Germany's Wehrmacht forces met with great success, capturing huge swaths of territory and taking millions of Soviet prisoners. However, Hitler made the disastrous error of launching Operation Barbarossa without sufficient manpower or logistical resources to sustain an invasion of Russia's vast interior. Even after some of the bloodiest battles of the Eastern Front that saw millions killed on both sides, Germany did not come close to defeating the USSR or capturing its major cities and industrial areas. The failure to allocate more resources and men drained German strength as the campaign dragged on. Finally, in 1945, the enormous manpower and production advantages of the Soviet Union overwhelmed the exhausted Wehrmacht, leading to Germany's total defeat on the Eastern Front. Invading Russia without enough troops or supplies turned out to be one of the deadliest military mistakes in history. Number 2. The U.S. backs Ngo Dinh Diem in South Vietnam in the 1950s to 60s. In an effort to contain communism in Southeast Asia, the United States threw its support behind the authoritarian regime of Ngo Dinh Diem in South Vietnam in the 1950s. However, Diem proved to be deeply unpopular and corrupt. His harsh crackdowns against Buddhist protests alienated the local population and failed to win their hearts and minds in the struggle against North Vietnam and the Viet Cong. As the insurgency grew, Diem proved unwilling and unable to adopt necessary reforms. Due to misguided nation-building policies and backing of Diem, the U.S. sunk further into the quagmire of the Vietnam War during the 1960s at immense costs in lives and national unity back home. Propping up Diem destroyed any chance of a political solution and was one of the worst strategic blunders of the Cold War era for America. And now, the number 1 spot on our list of the costliest mistakes by countries throughout history. Number 1. Japan attacks Pearl Harbor in 1941, dragging the U.S. into World War II. On December 7, 1941, Japanese carrier-based aircraft launched a devastating surprise attack on the U.S. naval base at Pearl Harbor in Hawaii. In a single morning, the Japanese inflicted heavy damage, significantly weakening American strength in the Pacific. However, Their leadership made a catastrophic error in judgment by bringing the economic and industrial powerhouse of the United States directly into World War II. Previous U.S. isolationism was shattered overnight as America mobilized its vast resources on a war footing. Japan lost any hope of securing a swift victory and faced the full wrath and resiliency of its new enemy. Within 4 years, the U.S. had developed atomic weapons and brought the war to a close by dropping bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Japan surrendered, its cities left in ruins and over 250,000 civilians dead. Launching what became known as the date which will live in infamy was without question the most severe strategic blunder in modern history, irrevocably changing the course of the 20th century. Thanks for watching. Please comment below with your thoughts, like this video to support us, and subscribe to our channel for more thought-provoking histories. Your support helps us to continue educating audiences with fact-based, serious historical discussions.